Welcome back to Mzansi Welcomes the World. Joining me now, I'd like to welcome the German ambassador to South Africa, Ambassador Andreas Peschke. Ambassador, guten Tag. Thank you so much for joining us.
Guten Tag, Sanibonani. I'm happy to be here.
No, absolute pleasure. Ambassador, it's a question I've been asking many of the guests, many of the ministers. Yesterday's declaration of the G20 leaders' commitment. Were you surprised or were you not surprised in the turnaround time that it took, the fact that it was done midday on day one with regards to this?
Well, it may seem surprising to people outside the negotiating process. In fact, it's not unusual, when the advisors to leaders negotiate. I mean, they have negotiated for over a week on that declaration. And then when the leaders see that there's sufficient consensus, overwhelming consensus, as the presidency put it, to pass it right at the beginning of the meeting, then to just fix the results of the entire presidency and then to have a free-flow discussion. So the presidency chose to go down that road, and we are fine with it, and we are happy with the declaration because it actually puts down many of the important results of the presidency.
How much of a role has Chancellor Merz really said that he wants to make sure that from a German perspective, this commitment, this pledge is being done in order to make sure that when we read what President Cyril Ramaphosa has been calling for, inclusive economic growth?
Well, actually, that is something we fully support. It has been one of the important themes of the South African presidency, included in this three main topics: solidarity, equality, sustainability. So, inclusive economic growth speaks to that. I think it's quite important in all our countries, in South Africa and Germany. We need growth to really share wealth with our people, but we need also growth which leaves nobody behind. So that is inclusivity. So it's quite important, and that's why we also, in the margins of the summit yesterday, we co-chaired South Africa and Germany a joint initiative of the G20, within the G20, called Compact with Africa, which is designed to boost private investment on the African continent, and also go down the lane of inclusive growth.
European Union, on Friday there was a deal that was signed for rare earth minerals with South Africa. And of course, what we have seen throughout this year is a commitment from the European Union in terms of trade ties with South Africa. Number one, how important is it? And number two, in terms of making sure that communities where mining is happening, where these earth rare minerals are happening, is there cognizance from the European Union that these communities need to be looked after so that there's economic growth happening right over there?
Sure. I think there's, we are very much aware of that necessity. I mean, we have our mining communities in Europe and in Germany as well. And we have an energy thing called energy transition in Germany. I think you know it in South Africa as well.
Yes, yeah.
So and then we phased out a number of mines in Germany. So the social aspect, to provide alternative employment to the workers, it was quite important in our country, or is still quite important in our country as well. So when it comes to EU and South Africa, so that partnership on critical raw materials. I think from our point of view, it is designed to be mutually beneficial. So South Africa is blessed with a lot of critical raw materials. So obviously there's an interest on the side of the European Union also to get a share of these critical raw materials to be used in European businesses. But I think the partnership we are offering is designed also to be beneficial for South Africa, in that we want to have a lot of beneficiation, processing of raw materials in South Africa, not just taking them out, extracting them, shipping them away, taking them to somewhere else, but processing them here in the country to create jobs and employment. So that's the gist of it. And then I think at this leaders meeting, European Union leaders and South African leaders, we also signed a new agreement called a Clean Trade and Investment Partnership,
Right.
which is supposed to encourage investment in general in modern technologies, improving investment conditions, which I think puts our partnership, I'm talking now about the EU and South Africa, also on a new level.
Ambassador Peschke, the renewable energy projects. There seems to be a huge push throughout this year. When you listen to the Minister of Electricity, Dr. Gosienzo Ramokgopa, he's saying that South Africa is really pushing hard to have renewables at the forefront of clean energy, but most importantly, sustainable and consistent energy. There, though, is a caveat to this, because the United States of America, which takes over the US presidency, and I don't want to get to the diplomatic aspects of it because it's quite complicating. The word coming out of the US is that fossil fuels needs to remain. This is coming, of course, from the White House, the administration. Is the European Union confident that from a global consensus, renewable energies will see the light of day in terms of a global contextualizing basis?
Well, I think there's no doubt that renewable energies are taking over. The only question is when.
Sure.
And how fast. So I think in the interest of climate, we are pushing for increasing renewables as swiftly as possible. I mean, that has been a discussion in Belém at the climate summit, has been a discussion within the G20 as well.
Sure.
There are some countries who are not so interested in moving that fast, and the current administration in Washington has said that they want to keep a large percentage of fossil fuels, but they are also into renewables. The market is just pushing the way. So we feel in Europe that the transition towards renewables is inevitable. Sometimes maybe we need to adapt the speed with which we go along, because there are also social consequences. And I think we also feel it's an important area of cooperation between South Africa and the European Union and Germany in particular. So we cooperated also on moving forward a just energy transition in South Africa. For us, this is quite important. Actually, we have invested over 50 billion rand in this cooperation. Yes. As we see it, I mean, South Africa made a lot of progress in the last 2 or 3 years down that lane. But obviously, it needs to go down that lane in their own speed. I mean, you need to take it step by step. You need to be urgent, but you also need to be patient. I mean, you cannot do it overnight. There are the social consequences as well. So we think the right way to go down or to implement it is in a socially just and fair way. That is actually quite important, so that people will continue to support it.
Ambassador Peschke, in the age of high trade tariffs, in the age of geopolitical tensions that we are seeing right now in the world, how close or how far is the European Union in its strengthening of relationships, not just with South Africa, but the entire African continent? I ask this question because in the East, we have China, who's of course putting in its influence from an economic perspective. Would you say there's a battle between the West and the East right now, economically, for the African continent? And how close or how far is the European Union in going ahead and saying, well, we are here to do trade with Africa?
Well, thank you very much for asking this question. Obviously, there always is some kind of friendly competition. Everybody wants to be...
You'd call it friendly?
Everybody wants to be a good partner.
Okay. Well, you'd call it friendly, Ambassador?
No, we are here at an important summit, and everybody is sitting in a friendly way around the table. Obviously, African continent is a coveted partner. It's very important. I mean, it's the youngest population in the world. It's very dynamic, and certainly it's very immense potential for the future. So, obviously, important countries like China or India, other countries want to increase and deepen their partnership. But as a European Union and Germany, we want to be there as well. And that's why, after that summit, our EU leaders and the African leaders, including President Cyril Ramaphosa, will go to another summit, starting tomorrow in Luanda,
Sure, yes.
which is going to be the EU-AU, the European
yes,
Union,
yeah,
African
yeah.
Union summit. So we're going to have our 27 European Union leaders around the table, the 50-something African Union leaders around the table. We're going to be a big summit as well. And actually, we want to mark 25 years of partnership between the European Union and the African Union. So that's important, and obviously we want to deepen that partnership as well, also cooperating with the African Union.
There's something interesting you mentioned there, Ambassador, the partnerships. Given the colonial history from Europe and, of course, Africa, do you feel that the European Union owes it to the continent to make even deeper and further pledges for the African continent economically? And that history, of course, stretches for quite a long period. So in these discussions, has the European Union taken cognizance of that there has to be a deeper appreciation, number one, of the African continent, and number two, economically, more must be done, given the colonial history of Africa, which was, of course, done by European nations?
Well, there are maybe two elements in this question. One is obviously, of course, we need to deal with our past. If you don't take responsibility for your past, it's difficult to move into the future. So we need to speak of our. Need to read a common understanding about our past, about the injustices of the past. So we have bilateral Germany. We have a negotiating process with Namibia to also make amendments and take responsibility for very difficult aspects of our joint history. And then also about there's the question of, for instance, objects of art. African art that was taken to the European continent and is now in European museums. So we have started big style to hand back objects of. So that's quite important. On the other hand, I think we also need to think about the future. I mean, that's what people expect of us. I mean, they want jobs tomorrow. They want to have wealth tomorrow. So I think we need to take care of the future. And there, I think objectively, Europe and Africa are closely connected. I mean, we are neighboring continents, aren't we? So this geographic proximity, there's a strong interrelationship between our people. So I think we need to find a joint approach towards the future. And that is actually the main reason for me for this partnership.
One final question, Ambassador. How would you sum up South Africa's G20 presidency for 2025?
Well, it has been a great ride. It has been a remarkable presidency under very difficult circumstances. So a big kudos to the South African presidency.
Ambassador, absolute pleasure having you, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
That's Ambassador Andreas Peschke, German ambassador to South Africa, of course, talking specifically to its relationship between the European Union and South Africa. Do remember that it was a rare earth minerals deal that was signed between European Union Commissioner Ursula von der Leyen and President Cyril Ramaphosa.